The lights go out across Taipei at 0347 hours, and the Taiwanese cable repair ship finds Chinese divers still attached to the severed power line. January 28, 2026, 0350 hours. Taiwan Strait, 23 nautical miles west of Taichung. The blackout hits like a physical blow. 2.7 million homes music, plunging into darkness in 3 seconds flat. Traffic signals die. Hospital backup systems scream music to life. Emergency grid activates across Taiwan's west coast. Diesel generators roaring against the sudden void. Cable ship CS Retriever was already responding when the grid collapsed. Civilian vessel Taiwanese flag crew of 32. They've detected the lights go out across Taipei at 0347 hours. And the Taiwanese music cable repair ship finds Chinese divers still attached to the severed power line. 8 minutes music earlier, 161 kilovolt subsea conduit simply vanishing from monitoring systems. No storm, no seismic event, just gone. Underwater cameras descend through black water. LED floods cutting pale tunnels through the murk. 180 FT down, the electrical artery lies severed. Music, clean cuts. 2 breaks 40 ft apart. Professional work. Then the ROV operator sees them. 2 divers. Chinese Navy rebreathers. No bubbles. Just recycled breath and military discipline. Commercial-grade hydraulic cable cutters strapped to their harnesses. They're not fleeing. They're working. Removing a 3rd segment of the power. Music line. Gloved hands methodical despite being caught on camera. Captain, we have foreign military personnel actively sabotaging critical infrastructure. The operator's voice stays level, barely. Request immediate support. The captain keys the emergency channel to Taiwanese Coast Guard, gives coordinates, gives situation. Music. The response is 2 words, hold position. Then the horizon changes. Type 055 cruiser. Lhasa emerges from morning haze to the northwest. Hull number 102, 13,000 tons of Ren high-class warship cutting through flat seas at 20 knots. No radio contact, no warning, just arrival and intent. The gray giant advances music directly toward Retriever's position, bow wave building as engines maintain speed. Distance shrinking 2 meters, then less. The civilian repair vessel sits dead in the water. Crane extended over the port side. ROV cables trailing into depths where Chinese military divers continue their work. 2 Taiwanese Coast Guard cutters respond to the emergency call. GI and Hinshu 600-ton patrol boats racing west at maximum speed. ETA 14 minutes might as well be 14 hours. Lhasa slows but doesn't stop. The cruiser's bulk fills the northern horizon now. Gray steel and purpose. 800 wide out. Close enough to count the weapon mounts. Close enough to see crew moving on deck. Below, the Chinese divers finish cutting the 3rd segment. They bundle the stolen cable segment, music, 40 FT of insulated copper, and connection hardware worth technical intelligence China can't get any other way. Then they start ascending, carrying music, $94 million in damage, and Taiwan's electrical specifications with them. Retrieve captain orders the ROV to surface. Can't risk the equipment of shooting starts. Can't do anything except watch the divers rise through water column, carrying pieces of his country's power grid. The saboteurs break surface near their destroyer's stern. Fast rope deploys from the deck above. They clip on, get hauled up like caught fish. 30 seconds later, they're aboard Lhasa. Mission accomplished, but the Ren high-ass vessel doesn't retreat. Instead, 2 rigid hull inflatables deploy from the cruiser's boat deck. 12 personnel total, Chinese Navy tactical gear, assault rifles visible even at this range. The RHIBs accelerate toward Retriever, forming pincer approach from port and starboard sides. On Taiwan's west coast, the emergency grid strains under load. Hospitals switch to backup generators. Water pumping stations go offline. Traffic chaos spreads through Taipei as 2.7 million people wake to find their lights dead and their morning coffee impossible. The RHIBs eat distance, outboard screaming, armed boarding teams standing ready. Retriever's civilian crew watches them come. No weapons aboard, no defense except radio calls that take 14 minutes to bring help. The inflatables close to half a mile, then a quarter, then close enough to see individual faces beneath tactical helmets. The captain keys his radio one more time. This is CS Retriever. Chinese warship has deployed armed boarding teams. We are unarmed civilian vessel conducting emergency infrastructure repair. Request immediate. His transmission cuts off as Chai and Hinshu appear on the eastern horizon. Running lights blazing, collision alarms sounding music across the water. The boarding teams are 300 YD out when the Taiwanese Coast Guard cutters arrive at flank speed, and suddenly, everyone has guns pointed at everyone. Chai and Hinshu, knife between Retriever and the Chinese RHIBs. Patrol vessels cutting white scars through morning sea. The inflatables kill their engines, but hold position. Weapons stay visible. Tactical team still standing, ready to move. The gray giant Lhasa looms behind them. 13,000 tons of floating firepower that makes the Taiwanese cutters look like toys. Both Coast Guard vessels deploy armed water police, not military, civilian law enforcement with rifles and riot gear. They fast rope onto Retriever's deck, establishing defensive perimeter around the repair crew. The Chinese RHIBs idle in place 50 YD from the cable ship's hull, too close to ignore, too far to board without crossing the line and to open aggression. Type 055, Lhasa sounds its collision alarm. Single blast, low, threatening, impossible to misinterpret. The note echoes across flat water for 3 full seconds. Standoff. 2 Coast Guard cutters, 1 civilian repair ship, 1 Chinese cruiser, 2 RHIBs with 12 armed personnel, everyone waiting for someone else to blink. Lhasa's captain broadcasts on emergency channel. Taiwanese vessels are interfering with PLN training exercise. Withdraw immediately. Chai responds instantly. Chinese warship, you have conducted sabotage against civilian infrastructure, causing humanitarian emergency. Retrieve your divers and withdraw from ROC territorial waters. Music. Aboard Retriever. The damage assessment comes back. Brutal. 3 sections cut. 120 FT of transmission cable removed. Music. Timeline minimum 72 hours. Cost $94 million. And on Taiwan, the power grid hemorrhages capacity with every passing minute. Taipei hospitals report generator failures, water pressure dropping, sewage systems backing up, 2.7 million people in darkness, while their emergency grid runs at 87% capacity and falling. The Chinese inflatables suddenly gun their engines. Not retreating, advancing, both ribs converge on Retriever from opposite sides. Pincer movement executed with military precision. Taiwanese water police raise weapons. Warning shot protocol, but civilian repair, music crew is exposed on deck, caught in potential crossfire. Retriever's captain broadcasts emergency. Do not shoot. We have unarmed crew. Too late. The boarding teams reach the civilian vessel's hull. Grappling hooks fly. Bite into deck rails. Lines secure. 8 Chinese music naval personnel swarm up the ropes before Taiwanese water police can physically block them. The civilians scatter toward the bridge. Armed Chinese sailors establish perimeter on the forward deck. Weapons covering every approach. Professional practice done in under 20 seconds. Taiwanese boarding teams fast rope from Chai onto Retriever's stern. Now 26 armed personnel on a cable repair ship designed for 15 civilian technicians. Water police from one side, PLN sailors from the other. Repair crew trapped between the Chinese team leader. Senior Lieutenant maintain reading Wang. Advances on Retrievers, music captain. Shut down ROV operations. Surrender all footage of underwater work. Now, Taiwanese water police commander moves to intercept. This is ROC sovereign vessel. You are committing act of piracy. Surrender your weapons immediately. 10 seconds of silence. Fingers music drift toward triggers. The repair ship's deck becomes a compressed battlefield where breathing feels dangerous. Then, Lhasa moves. Engines music build from idle to 1-3 power. The massive cruiser pivots, bows swinging toward the clustered vessels. Displacement creates bow wave that rocks all three smaller ships, steel hulls groaning as physics asserts dominance. The Ren high-class vessel bears down on the group. 4 ship lengths separate the cruiser from the clustered boats, close enough that its wake threatens to capsize the ribs still tied alongside Retriever. Close enough to smell rust streaks on hull plating. Close enough to smell diesel exhaust mixing with ocean salt. Lieutenant Wang receives radio order. He signals his team start withdrawing toward the inflatables, weapons still covering their retreat. But Taiwanese water police block the route to the gunwalls. You're not leaving with our evidence footage or our cable segments. Drop the equipment. Wang's hand rests on his sidearm. 23 years old. Orders to complete mission. 40 armed personnel surrounding his 8-man team. Mathematics that don't favor heroics. Last chance. The Taiwanese commander says weapons down, hands visible. You're being detained for sabotage of critical civilian infrastructure under maritime law. For 5 heartbeats, nothing moves except the waves slapping against clustered hulls. Then Wang's radio crackles with Mandarin. Fast, urgent, he listens. His expression doesn't change. He looks at his men, looks at the surrounding water police, looks at Lhasa, idling 500 YD out with loaded weapons. Slowly, he raises his hands. When the Taiwanese commander orders his men to detain the boarding team, 18 Chinese naval personnel become prisoners on a cable repair ship. While their cruiser idles 500 YD away with loaded weapons, zip ties secure 18 music wrists. Taiwanese water police disarm and search the detained Chinese sailors. 8 from the initial boarding team, 10 from supporting RIIB crews who climbed aboard during the confrontation. 1 senior lieutenant, 2 petty officers, 15 enlisted, all plan regular Navy, complete with identification and service records. Not contractors, not deniable operators. Official Chinese military personnel caught red-handed conducting infrastructure sabotage. Type 0555, Lhasa maintains position 500 YD out. Main guns trained on the cluster of vessels, waiting. The cruiser's captain broadcasts, "Release plan personnel immediately, or we will interpret detention as act of war and respond accordingly." Taiwanese Coast Guard Command responds from shore. Chinese personnel detained for sabotage of critical civilian infrastructure. They will be transferred to ROK music custody for prosecution under maritime law. On Taiwan, the blackout intensifies. 2.7 million homes still dark. Emergency grid running at 84% capacity and dropping. Hospitals reporting critical supply shortages. Water pressure failing across Taipei. Sewage treatment plants switching to manual operation. Retriever needs to begin repairs immediately. Every hour of delay means more grid strain, more generator failures, more humanitarian crisis spiraling beyond control. But the ship can't deploy ROV or restoration equipment while serving as detention center for 18 armed prisoners and 26 water police guards. Then additional vessels appear on the horizon. 2 Type 052D destroyers from the south, 7,000 tons each. They take station alongside Lhasa, forming line formation that stretches across 2 m of water. Music, 3 Chinese warships versus 2 Coast G guard cutters. Taiwanese request reinforcement. Music, nearest ROK Navy frigate 90 minutes out. The Chinese formation begins. Slow advance, not ramming speed. Music, deliberate pressure. Eating distance incrementally. The gray hulls slide forward, music, at 5 knots. Coordinated movement that shrinks the gap without triggering immediate collision alarms. Lhasa broadcasts again. Final warning. Release plan personnel within 10 minutes or we will conduct rescue operation by force. Retriever's captain faces impossible mathematics. Release saboteurs to restart repairs or hold prisoners and risk shooting war that stops repairs. Anyway, either choice leaves Taiwan in darkness. Taiwanese government issues emergency statement. Music. 18 Chinese naval personnel detained for $94 million sabotage operation. Power restoration efforts continuing despite military interference. ROC will not yield to intimidation. But aboard Retriever, detained Lieutenant Wang smiles slightly because his divers already accomplished the mission. 3 40F cable segments stolen, complete with connection hardware, installation specifications, technical data on Taiwan's entire sub-EC power infrastructure, weak points, repair procedures, vulnerabilities. China couldn't obtain any other way. The Blackout was proof of concept. The stolen intelligence is strategic asset. At 0520 hours, a fourth Chinese vessel appears. Type 075 amphibious assault ship, 40,000 tons, helicopter capable. The assault ship's deck comes alive with rotor wash. As 2 Z-20 helicopters spool up, the aircraft launch flying low, heading directly toward the detention scene. Taiwanese Water Police Commander radios headquarters. Chinese appears preparing airborne extraction of detained personnel. Request rules of engagement for shooting down helicopters in ROC airspace. Response delayed. Political calculations processing through chain of command as helicopters close the distance. 2M, then 1 mile, then hovering overhead. Downwash creating whirlpool effect music on water surface. Spray sheeting across Retriever's deck. LASA broadcasts lower boats music with PL personnel immediately. Helicopters will retrieve. If you interfere, we will interpret as hostile fire. On Taiwan, 2.7 million people, music, remain in darkness. Hospital generators running on fumes, water pressure dropping, sewage systems failing. Every minute, music counts. And the repair ship sits idle, turned into floating prison, while emergency grid capacity music drains away. Taiwanese commander looks at his 18 prisoners, looks at helicopters overhead, looks at 3 Chinese warships with weapons trained on his music position, then looks at the damage assessment on Retriever's monitors, showing 2 more cut sections discovered during last ROV sweep before detention started. Not 3 cuts, 5 cuts. Total damage 196 FT of severed cable. Repair timeline 96 hours minimum. The emergency grid won't last that long. Music, Taiwan's west coast has maybe 48 hours of backup power remaining. After that, total blackout. Hospitals go dark. Music, water stops flowing. 3 million people without electricity while repair ship can't work because it's serving as battleground. Music. The helicopter pilot opens the side door. Fast ropes drop toward Retriever's deck, and Taiwan's west coast plunges deeper into darkness. With every second, music the repair ship can't